do have questions, drop them in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me just make sure that the right one is what is popping up. Hopefully you can see, oops, that's not, I just made it go away, y'all. Here we go. Hopefully you can see let me know if you see Canva. You should see Canva.
Yes.
Awesome. So, as a high school teacher, you think I would figure out Zoom, but sometimes I still get super confused. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, but I love that people are asking this. Yeah, I jumped in with 2 feet. I love this. Audio life, it's the best thing. You're scared. Well, hopefully after this session, you'll feel not so scared, and you are going to have homework. I hope it doesn't scare you, but I'm a teacher. So I would love, as you're listening to this, thinking about when you think you can host your first room or who you will ask to be in your room with you. So that's the preview, what we're talking about. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Monica Monfrey. I'm an Instagram strategist, business coach, high school teacher, and community creator. I resonate so much with what Kelly does, with what so many members do here. It's always amazing to show up and be surrounded by people that you know. I know so many of you either from in-person events, from yoga events, from Clubhouse, and from Facebook. So it's great to bring everybody together. And I remember I'm in this like kind of millionaire mastermind. Obviously, I'd like to become a millionaire someday. And they were talking about this new thing called Clubhouse. And this is what it was like. People were still selling invites to get into Clubhouse. That's how like many months ago this was. And I need to update this because something has changed on here for me. But I decided, I got in and I was super excited. And it just started to show up. I went to my very first event, super nervous, and then it realized that it's just your voice. And I love to talk. I'm a teacher, so I don't have to be so nervous. And started showing up. And within just a few weeks, I had gained over 1.3 thousand, so 1,300 followers on Instagram, which was like, that doesn't happen normally. Like I try really hard to get like 2 a day. I'm like, yes, I got 2 followers, and then I like lose 5. But this happened all because of Clubhouse. Then I looked at my Clubhouse followers. I was in somebody's room and she was like talking how she was getting to 1,000 followers on Clubhouse. And I realized that I was already at it without any sort of fanfare. So actually, I think I'm up to 1,400 followers on Clubhouse. And I don't know that that means anything in the world, but you do hear people say like, I've got 5,000 followers on Clubhouse. And then I really had just generated in 2,500. It doesn't seem like a lot of money. I've heard people say things like $20,000. But I sold a lot of very small priced items very quickly, which brought more people into my funnel. So I always think of it like if I sell a $37 product, but that person goes on, like that's a client I didn't have before. So I love Clubhouse because, as Kelly has said, you get to show up and however you are. It's the one social media that you could be going to the bathroom while you're still partaking in it because nobody can see you and technically they can't hear you. So if that is something that excites you, then that is all the more reason to dive into Clubhouse. For me, it's been pretty effortless. I think the hardest part about it is saying no, not showing up all the time on Clubhouse. So we're going to dive in a few things that I'm just going to dive right into this because there is a lot. So I'm starting with like the good, the bad, and the ugly about Clubhouse. So the good is that we've talked about this. It's just all audio. So it removes the vanity metrics. It doesn't matter what you look like. You don't have to get in the right picture, have the right filter. The numbers don't really matter. I would say that people talk about how many people they have in their room, but I'm going to be really honest. I've been in rooms with 5 to 7 people and made hundreds of dollars, right? Because if those 5 to 7 people are in your room and want what you're offering, it doesn't matter. You don't have to try to get 200 likes on a picture anymore. It's your voice, so you get to show up as the expert, right? We get to show up inside of the room in our collaboration. We get to set the space, we get to set the tone. And I am going to talk about how being the expert also is one of the negatives of Clubhouse, but it's amazing to just be able to hear from the experts who are literally out there doing this. I've been in rooms with Jerisha Hawk. I've been in rooms with Perez Hilton was there one time. He should not have been talking about being a coach. He gave really bad advice, but you get to hear from like really famous people. So it kind of makes everybody the expert at the same time. It allows you to be on panels with great people. It's real time. So I love that it's in the moment. So if, I've been doing Instagram audits for people or Facebook audits, and people, you can literally get that feedback and apply it right away. And the most important thing for me about Clubhouse is that it's a service first platform. So when you go into Clubhouse, when we serve, that's what people are looking for. So somebody who absorbs content, like you're getting so much free content that people are paying thousands of dollars for. There are venture capitalist rooms there that like people just give away stuff. So for me, that's been the really good part about Clubhouse. The bad, and I'm going to put an asterisk here, is that it's currently only for iOS. So you need an iPad or you need an iPhone. However, they just announced on Sunday that they hired their first Android developer. So if you are on here and you have an Android or you know somebody who does, I probably is going to happen within the next couple of months. It's not accessible right now for deaf or hard of hearing folks, but they are. I'm going to talk to you one way that you can help to do this, to make this easier when you're inside of a room. It also is a great platform for people who like to talk a lot, which can also mean that people leave rooms because they talk too much. So definitely those are some of the bad things. And I will say this, you weren't allowed to record until last Sunday. So now you can record your rooms as long as you put this recording dot and say recording so that people know that they're being recorded. So again, that whole idea of being in the moment, there's a lot of FOMO, I think, that goes along with Clubhouse, whether you're in it or you miss an event. So some of this has changed a little bit. Some of the ugly parts, blocking. So you can be blocked and not know it, and that will limit who you can see rooms as. So I think this goes in when we talk about taking a very polarizing stance, potentially could happen. And they have added some like trolling devices, but without Clubhouse isn't monitoring all the rooms. And so there have been times when like some ugly things have happened. I think that I will say this about Clubhouse, it's in beta still. They are still figuring out this app. So as bad things happen, they are very responsive. And if you are on Clubhouse, I encourage you to join the community calls on noon on Sundays, because they'll give you a lot of information that's free and will help you kind of stay ahead of the trends. The other ugly part about Clubhouse is it's kind of addictive. I don't know if anybody else here is, you can just literally have it in your ear and be walking around and listening all day long. So that is like one of the bad things. So if you're new to the lingo, here's some stuff I had no idea. Yeah, Jamie, they're trying so hard to like moderate more. There's a new one that says trolling. You can like pick on somebody if they're trolling. I did get trolled one time by this woman who said that like you shouldn't use hashtags in your Instagram posts. And she like came in to like blow something up, and she's like, I have 250,000 followers, but her name was like porn for women or something. And I was like, well, perhaps the fact that your name is porn is why you might have 250,000 followers. So that happened. So some lingo. PTR. So you'll be in a room and somebody will say, if everyone could just PTR the room, that means pull to refresh. It just reorders. It's kind of like on Zoom. It's important that if you are moderating a room that you PTR. Also, PTR is something cool to do if you want to change your picture or your bio while you're inside of a room. You can just quickly change it and then PTR. So I know some of you in here might have podcasts. Like I know, Allison, you have a podcast. So if you go into a room, maybe you have your profile picture, but then you get on stage and you want people to know about your podcast, you could quickly change your profile picture to be your podcast and then PTR, and that would be your image. So that's like a really cool marketing tool to use. Flashing mic. So if you've ever seen people flashing the mic, that means that you're applauding someone. If you're the only people who can flash mics though are those who are on stage. They are making it now so that you can quietly enter a room and exit a room. So some of these things that I'm saying here might be changing. It is fun to be on stage and see lots of people flashing mics. If you didn't know what that was, you were wondering, it's pretty, that's what kind of happens really quickly. Lots of people talk about bio swapping. What they mean by bio swapping is that you might want to have two different bios for Clubhouse, a bio when you're visiting rooms and a bio when you're presenting. I don't actually think that bio swapping is as important as knowing to change out your Instagram link, but you could definitely have two different bios. The thing about Clubhouse bios, they literally can be long and they can take they change in like 5 seconds. It's not quite like an Instagram one. There's no limits to it, so you can add and subtract, but you will hear people say bio swap. I would say if you're like going into a venture capitalist room, you might want to change your bio really quickly because people do look at your bios in Clubhouse. And then we hear a lot of people say room versus club. So anyone in here can host a room. That's like when you just hop on stage and you start talking. Then there is a club, which is where like we're in a club right now. So if Kelly wanted to start a club called the Morning Magic Collective, that would be a club, and you could host a room inside of a club. So I just bring that up because sometimes I think we assume that every single room is inside of a club or that's the only way to host. And I actually think as clubs become bigger and have more restrictions, to kind of go along with what Jamie was saying earlier about kind of the lack of moderation, that sometimes it's better to not host it inside of a club, especially if you are looking to invite more people. Sometimes inside of a club, you'll have to get permission to unlock the room. So that's some of the quick lingo. Some of the symbols are like the green star for the moderator. So I've noticed this before when you go into a room. So let's say that Kelly and I were going to do this actually on Clubhouse, and she opened the room first. She would be the green moderator. She can pull down and make me the moderator as well. So you can have multiple people. It's nice to have a couple of different moderators, because I one time got pinged out of my own room. Like, you know, all those notifications, and I was clicking people to come up on stage, and then I accidentally pinged myself out of the room. The problem with having multiple moderators is you do want to know, you want to trust the moderator so that they don't bring somebody up on stage that you don't want up on stage, or that they don't keep the room open after you've closed it. So I love moderating. I think it's really important. I will tell you, I think 3 to 5 moderators is a beautiful place. We're going to talk about how to bring people into your room. If you see a party hat, say hello. Oh, ping. Yeah. So ping means that if you want to bring more people in, it's like you're inviting. It's like your invite, and it literally pings you in. So you can ping yourself into, or you can ping somebody into a room as like an invite. But the problem is, like, it's very easy to get pinged out. So like if I accidentally hit the room, it'll pull me right out of the room. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And Clubhouse moves so quickly with that. Rooms don't close though until you close them. Party hat, say hello. If you're on Clubhouse for less than 7 days, you're going to have a party hat. This is also, we're going to talk about a key way to like to get people to find new followers. The hand raising. So I think I have a picture on the next one. I'm going to show you what the hand raising is. If the hand raising is grayed out, that just means that you can't come up on stage. And we've all seen the peace sign. If someone is trolling you, yeah, you can click this like button to tell them to move off stage. Also, if you're the moderator, it's part of our responsibility as moderator to, like, if people start to interrupt people, you can actually kick somebody off of stage. So there's a like remove button from the stage, so you can quickly remove somebody. I've only heard of this happening once or twice. We, like, that person who was kind of trolling me and like saying all this stuff, my friend Annika was like, she kind of put her in her place, and then the person kind of left, because I think most people start to realize that that's not acceptable behavior. But you can, if you're a moderator and somebody says something that violates humanity inside the room, you can actually remove them from the stage. So here's a little image down here. If you guys see this, this is that sign, the peace sign. By the way, people come and go as much as they want. So never feel like you need to feel bad if somebody leaves a room. I always, when people come in and out, I kind of feel like Zoom. You never know if somebody liked it or didn't like it, or if they lost their internet. Like, we live in the technology world. So this leave quietly button, it will literally just pull you out of the room. Nobody will know unless you're in like a small room. Up here, so I kind of took this picture to help you. This is the Clubhouse. So the creative individuals with the Clubhouse next to it, that means that this event was sponsored under a club. The title is really important, and just so you know, emojis are searchable. So having like an emoji inside of your title makes it even more searchable. You see everybody here is a moderator because they have the green next to them, and then they're all muted because they're not talking. And the person who is talking will typically have like a tan line around them. I guess I didn't get that. I think the person was really far down. This is the ping button. So if you want to ping somebody into the room, you hit the plus sign. You can only ping people into the room if you're the moderator or if the people have it unlocked. This is the hand raising. So if you wanted to ask a question to come up on stage, you would raise your hand. And then there's 3 little buttons up here that if you click on those, it'll give you different things. Like if you want to report the room, those are kind of what that means. And then you'll notice here, like, this is your profile picture. If I wanted to change it, all I need to do is click on my profile and change it in that moment, and it will, then I would PTR and it would change it. So how to capitalize. So if I'm in the audience of this room, couple of things. Let's say I'm really enjoying what Dahlia is saying. I could actually send a message to Dahlia while she's talking on her Instagram. This is one of the most beneficial things to do is while you're in rooms, to literally message someone like, hey, I really love the room. I'm in your Clubhouse room. Say hello. that is going to open doors up. People don't mind, and do it while the room is happening. Like, people are used to kind of managing two things. I think of Instagram as like the Zoom private chat. Then let's say that I hear Brad ask a really great question. I could even message him and be like, hey, I really love the question that you asked. I've also been in rooms before. Oh, what do you mean you can't see my screen? Oh, is my screen, do you not see it? Uh-oh.
I can see it.
I see it.
Yeah.
You see how to capitalize in the Clubhouse room?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It might be for someone, if you're on a phone, sometimes it might be awkward. So this is one that I think is really interesting. I've been in a room before where somebody asked the leader about hashtags and the person didn't answer the response. So I think it's okay to message someone if you hear a response and to be like, hey, I just heard you ask a question about hashtags. I'm an Instagram strategist, and if you have any other questions, I'd love to chat with you. Or you're not stealing somebody's client if you add to somebody's response by messaging them. I think that, in fact, people appreciate that because they see you as serving. So it's really important. I'd never say like I disagree with that response, but I just noticed that if somebody doesn't fully answer the question, I'll like reach out and be like, hey, great question. I message them. You can't message within Clubhouse, so I'll just message them on Instagram. And here's the thing, I don't know if anybody else in here is afraid of the DMs on Instagram. We've all heard like, don't DM people. When you're on Clubhouse, you're going to learn how to love the DM, because I'm in my DMs now all the time, because that's really the only way to connect with people outside of voice on Clubhouse. You can do Twitter. I had to find my Twitter mailbox. I didn't know where it existed. So just know that getting into somebody's DMs now is way easier than ever before. And actually, that's one thing I do. Sometimes when I go on Clubhouse, I don't even actually listen to what's happening in the room. I might be looking at who's new to Clubhouse. So if I'm in the audience and I see a person with a hat in the audience who's new to Clubhouse, I'll just send them a DM that's like, hey, welcome to Clubhouse. So great to connect. I'm in the same room as you. It's not, most people say like, thanks so much, I'm really enjoying it. And if that's where the conversation ends, that's where the conversation ends. But one thing I think we've been a little bit nervous about DMing people because of the hey girl messages that we've all gotten. But we're not hey girly people, like literally saying like, hey, I saw you in Clubhouse, I'm really interested in what you're doing, or I heard you on the stage, great question. And that has led me not only, so when I say I've made money, I've also been able to become an influencer for different brands. I'll show you guys these. I was in a room with this woman and she makes soap, and she sent me 3 things of soap. Look at these handmade soaps. Like 3 of these like amazing handmade soaps just by being in somebody's room. And she was like, I would love to see if to send you something to see if you like them for your wedding. So there are so many different ways to like utilize Clubhouse to grow. It's not just about like monetary. So it's not always just about being on stage that's beneficial. It's also like being in the audience. Normal to leave rooms during conversations. I used to think I needed to say goodbye. Like people would be like, oh, Monica left. And then I just realized that that's why it says leave quietly. If you love the room, take a screenshot of the room, tag the moderators, and share it on Instagram. This is especially important if you're in a room and you see somebody who's got like a huge audience that might be your ideal clients. Take a screenshot and share it. What I would not do is over talk when you have the mic. So one of the most important things on Clubhouse is if you get on stage, know what you want to say. So when you get on stage, you have about 30 seconds to a minute. So this can be really hard. This is one of the issues people do have with Clubhouse is if you have, like maybe you have, I know a couple of my clients have severe they have brain trauma, and it's hard for them to quickly articulate what they want to say. But you really have about 30 seconds to a minute. So it's really great to know your elevator speech. My name is Monica Monfrey. I'm an Instagram and coach and business coach in Brooklyn, New York. And I am offering services to women to launch their businesses. I'd love to talk. I'd love to ask a question about blah, blah, blah. So very quickly, like what you do, who you serve, and then your question. And the quicker you can do that, especially if you're in some of these large rooms with really influential people, the more you're going to get responses back from them. And that's probably the biggest feedback is be quick. And then when you come on stage, know if you want to add value or if you want to ask a question. So I've been in a room before where this man got on stage. He said, I really love this room. By the way, you've all seen that, the reel, right, about what people say when they're on stage. Like, thank you so much for this space. I'm really grateful to you. And he went on stage and he was like, I just have 8 points that I would love to share with the audience. And the woman was like, hold up, we've got like 10 minutes left, right? So like know exactly if you're going to add value, how quickly can you add value? And then can you step back, especially if you're in somebody else's room? But don't be afraid to add value if the people say, like, does anybody have something to say in the audience? Raise your hand and get up on stage. That's actually how I started. And then know what the topic of the room is. So there are a lot of rooms, and I will say this, like everybody always asks, is it just for coaches? So I know a few of you, like what you do. So Allison, like there's podcasting rooms. Regina does breath work. Like there are rooms where people lead breath work sessions. There are silent rooms where people just come in and it's like a co-working time and you're just in the room to hold space and be silent, kind of what Kelly, what you do with like the co-flow hours. There are rooms where people are having debates and conversations. There are rooms where they just listen to house music. So just know that it's not always just a business app. And if you want some really interesting rooms, go in after dark, because even at nighttime, there's even more like interesting topics. But I've been in rooms where it's like every morning they do a 5-minute meditation in the morning. So this can really become something that you can like connect with and move outside of just business. And then the other way I think that's really important is that serving first, but offer a way to connect. So if you come up on stage and you ask a question, don't be afraid to say that, like, I have a great offer. If you're interested in it, come check me out. Like, people will say, like, if you're on stage, you better like, find out share who you are. Excuse me. I think the first time I went on stage was to give a piece of advice about Instagram. And I was so nervous. There was like 500 people in the room. And I think that one piece of advice, what ended up happening is that the moderator, Brandon, was like, he kept saying, like, a few minutes later, he's like, well, Monica shared this piece of advice earlier. And even though I wasn't a moderator, because I was still on stage, I ended up getting people to follow me. So sometimes like diving in, like Jamie said, with 2 feet first and taking a chance helped me realize that I have something to say. And it's not just the moderators who are the experts in the room. So when you're in the audience, you can make just as much money as when you're on stage. So if you are more of an introvert, or you're, using your voice is not where you want to be, know that there's so many spaces still for you to show up on Clubhouse and make money or connect. Because I always like to say connection is more important on Clubhouse than converting might be. So let's say now you're on stage. How do we convert on stage? So to go back to some of the questions that, well, let me just run you through with the pictures and then I'll talk about this. So when you decide to create a room, there's a couple things that you should know, because people always ask. One of the questions that was asked in the Morning Magic thread was, how do I find rooms? It's really hard to find them. And they are supposedly working on the calendar. A few things though, you can share it with people. So if you click the share button, it will send them the actual link so people can put it on their calendar. You can tweet it out. I like to do this one. As soon as I book a room, I like to go and copy the link and then share it with people so that they can put it on their Google calendars so that they'll have the exact link to pop into the room. And then you can add it to your own calendar. So it's getting better that you can do this. I've also liked to take this picture here or this one and edit it and put it on your Instagram stories, your Facebook stories, and then drop the link for people so they can see it and then be able to connect with you. This is where your calendar is. This is where all of your events will live. And if you RSVP to an event, if you add it to your calendar, it will actually show up under your calendar here so you can more quickly find it. I did not take a picture of this, so I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but if you have the Clubhouse app with you, if you swipe left on your app, you will see all the people that you are following, and you can click on their profiles and it will take you to rooms that they are currently in. So if, for example, I wanted to know where Jamie is and I go to Jamie's profile and I swipe left and then I find Jamie, I can join her in a room. So that's a quick way. If you know that somebody that you saw Dr. Lindsay Padilla is going to have an event, you could just find her in your followers. So that works if you have followers. So how do we convert on stage? The very first thing is hold the container of the room. So this is going to go back to what Regina was saying. And when people are interrupting and talking to people, maybe it's because I'm a teacher, but I'm always like, let's take a moment to reset. So what we mean by resetting is that we're constantly inviting people. We're saying, like, I'm going to take a moment to reset the room. I see we've got some new people who are joining us. Just a note, my name is Monica Monfrey, an Instagram strategist, and today we're talking about how to use hashtags. Kelly, what's your question? So resetting the room is just a reminder to people like what we're talking about. It welcomes people in, and then it like kind of lets us know who is talking. I do that about every 10 minutes because again, remember, people come in and out of Clubhouse rooms, so don't be afraid that you're resetting the room too often. People actually really appreciate the reset. And I realized that one of my boxes disappeared. When you are on stage, I remember I said that you can't, it's really hard for people who are deaf or hard of hearing to engage because it's an audio platform. So transcription is a big thing in here, especially if it's on your Google Calendar. So I invite you to try this new way of making it more accessible, which is before you speak, you would say something like, this is Monica speaking. I'm here to, I wanted to find out from Jamie, what's a healthier way for me to work out or to eat after I eat fried food? I'm complete. And then when Jamie would go, Jamie would say, this is Jamie speaking. Thanks for that question, Monica. And then as soon as she's done, she would say, I'm complete. And it might feel really awkward at first, but this is one way that we can help to make Clubhouse more accessible, because the problem with transcription is it doesn't know the differences in our voices. So if we say, this is Monica speaking, this is Kelly speaking, and then when you're finished, say I'm finished or I'm complete, then it lets the person who's reading it know that who spoke. And it also lets your room kind of know like who can go next. So there's not that arguing or talking over each other. So it's important to let people know that. It helps to hold the container of the room. Be clear in your description and then know what's next for your audience. So if I'm holding a room on Clubhouse, I want to know, like, what do I want people to do? Do I want them to follow me on Instagram? Do I want them to buy me from Instagram? Like, what do I want to do? And here's the thing. People say, like, if you ask for followers, they're going to leave your room. I think that that's ridiculous because, to be quite honest, most of us in here are business people. And if we don't say, like, come follow me on Instagram or send me a message, people don't take action. We need to be invited in. So I never say like follow everyone on stage, but I will say something like, if you've enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the moderators on Clubhouse and feel free to send us a message as well. Which is why it's so important to have your Instagram link be exactly what you want people to buy from you or whatever you're doing. So for example, if you have a breathwork workshop coming up, that should be the link inside of your Instagram bio. So you can say to people, if you've enjoyed this workshop, come and join me in my next workshop. The link is in my Instagram bio. That's going to lead you to having really quick conversions. So when you hear people say, I made $20,000 on Clubhouse, it's because they had a link that converted. So definitely think about your links. There's no way to connect directly through your Clubhouse bio. So we're going to take a look at the Clubhouse bio. So it is really important to remind people to send you a DM. Some of you might know that strategy of like, tell them to DM you the word free and you'll send them your training. Like that works really well as well on Clubhouse. But there is no way on your Clubhouse bio to click on your links. So make sure that you're very clear how you want people, what next step you want them to do. And this is a really fun one that I love. And I feel like it will resonate a lot with Jamie as well is, yeah, you can have a link to your Clubhouse in your Linktree, Regina. It's absolutely, if you have an event coming up, definitely, I recommend doing that. I love this one, and I feel like this will resonate with Jamie and probably with Allison and maybe a bunch of other people as well. If you notice that someone is like 3 followers away from Instagram, be like, hey, let's make it a thing to get Allison to this next level and follow her on Instagram. And that like creates really goodwill. So I heard about this because somebody was in a room and they were selling their $5 book and they just wanted to sell 10 copies. And so the room said they were going to stay open until 10 people bought a copy of the book. And then when they all changed their profile to be a copy of the book that they bought. And it's just a really cool way to like create goodwill on Clubhouse. So this is another way as a moderator that we can bring people onto our side, because if they're like, oh my gosh, Monica loves to help me grow, then they're going to want to work with you more often. How's everyone feeling? I'm going to take a moment to breathe. Questions, thoughts, feeling good? Okay, I'm going to move on, but you all can ask questions in the, yeah, it's definitely going to play your hype girl. I knew you would like that hype girl things. Yes, Regina. Do all of this for you. I will say this, Clubhouse, I do not have to be on Instagram as much anymore since I'm on Clubhouse. So it's less about you and more about your audience. So I'm also going to say this about when you're on stage. I've been in a couple of rooms where people like, they showed up and basically held their podcast on Clubhouse. And I think that's a way to have people leave your room. It's more fun to teach for like 5 or 7 minutes and then invite people up on stage, because when somebody asks a question, you can live coach them during the question, and then you're going to be able to convert them because they're going to be like, oh, that was so great. So I think about it almost like a mastermind call in some ways, like, let me talk to you about this, and then invite people to come up on stage. This is why I think it's also great to have a second or third moderator with you, so that one person can kind of be like asking the questions if nobody has a question. But it's definitely really important to keep the room flowing. So again, if somebody's really long-winded, you might want to be having a conversation. One strategy is to have, let's say that Jamie, I just see Jamie, Allison, and Kelly are the first 3 people, so I'm sorry that I keep saying your names. Everybody else, I love you as well. But let's say Jamie, Allison, and Kelly, we're all moderating. We would have a back channel to talk. So it might be a Facebook private messenger or an Instagram private messenger. So we can be like, hey, Kelly, do you want to answer this question? Or Jamie, I'm going to go take a look at her Instagram. Do you want to field this one? And then we can say like, man, this woman's talking too much. Like, can we please like redirect her? Or that person just said something that I think doesn't align. Can we like reset the room? So that's, the back channel is like really important because there's no other way to communicate. If you're running out of time, this is really powerful too. I hold my rooms to 60 minutes. Listen, I don't have enough time to be there for like 24 hours. So I tell people like, we're about to end in 10 minutes. If I didn't get to you, go ahead and send it to me in a DM and I'll respond, within the next few hours. And that's a great way to keep people, number one, who weren't ready to come up on stage, to serve them. It's also a great way to like let people know that, hey, just reach out to me, and opens up the DMs. And then if you don't want people to participate, turn the hand raising off, because there's nothing worse than you keep getting messages that somebody wants to come up on stage. I will say this, people have to ask to be on stage. So sometimes you'll hear people say like, I'm going to try to bring you up on stage. People have to ask. So you want to invite people, if you want them to come up on stage, to raise your hand. So what about clubs? They had turned off applying for clubs for a little bit. It's back on. It's fun to have a club. This is what happens when you swipe left. You'll see all of the different clubs. Some clubs are starting to get to be so big that they're not letting people promote inside of the club. The benefits of our club is if I host a room under educators, then these 257 people will be pinged into my room. So I'm in Women in Business. It's spelled WOMXN in business, in biz. If you want to be nominated, I can nominate you to it. They have 60,000 women. They only let their members now hold rooms on Sunday, because so many people were hosting rooms at the same exact time. So that's the benefit of the rooms, is that they invite people, or invite a club. If you wanted to start a club, I think it's a great idea. There's a couple of things to remember. You have to apply. They approve it hand right now because they're still in beta. You also would want to have a back channel to organize your club, right? So most people have a Slack, they have a website, they have a Facebook group, because again, there's no real way to communicate on Clubhouse. So the reason why I have chosen not to have a club is I cannot manage something else right now. Too much going on. And I find that being able to utilize somebody else's club is helpful, because I'm bringing great content to their club. That being said, Kelly, if Morning Magic wants to have a club, I'll join. But it is just another way. It helps you to connect with people. I also think you can do a room in the hallway and have just as much success as you would inside of a club. In fact, if you want to create a club, you do need to have a room every week, the same time for 3 weeks in a row, so that they can see that you actually are going to show up and create community. So I could talk this through, but I think it's easier. You guys are going to get the links. If you want this, just take a quick snapshot of this, but I actually just want to walk you through, because I've been talking a lot, and I don't know how many of you are visual learners, but I learn better when I see. So there is this line, but let me just show you what I really mean. Here's my bio. So let's just walk through, and feel free to take a snapshot of this. I tried to be as teacher friendly as I could with this. So you have your followers and you have your following. Same kind of rules apply as Instagram. Try not to like have this be 6. I think you're actually capped at 2.5. I think you can only follow 2.5 thousand, but I'm not quite sure about that. Your first 3 lines are the most important lines of your whole bio. When somebody isn't following you and they click on your bio, this is what they see. So you want to make sure that in this top line that you're clear on who you are, what you do, and like what your promise is to people, what your helping statement is. And emojis are searchable, as are words. So Clubhouse is entirely keyword based. So notice mine, it's teacher turned entrepreneur because I'm a teacher. And then I have my like program promise here. Bios are much, much longer on Clubhouse. So I always tell people, I teach high school literature. I tell my students to skim. People in Clubhouse skim. So your first 3 lines matter and your last 3 lines matter a lot. So in the middle, though, you still want to have like a nice beefy bio. So first 3 lines, that's probably the most important thing. I just added this. I forgot that like I actually did paid PR. I know we're not supposed to do it, but they gave me a really great deal. So I was like, might as well pay like $60. So if you have any PR, you might want to put it here. If you have a podcast, you might want to put it near the top. I recommend to clients not to put their podcast in the first 3 lines because you want people to like know if they're following you, and then your podcast can be right after that. Kind of a podcast doesn't encourage me, doesn't know what you're going to offer me or your promise to me. Then down here I have, again, since people do skim, I highly recommend not using long sentences. I know I'm an English teacher. I'm going to tell you, don't write in paragraph form. Bullets work better. And then I like to put my emojis at the start of my bullet point to indicate like this is what it's about. And remember, they're searchable. So using something like a star, maybe like the eyes don't see it as well. So thinking really clearly about what type of star or what type of emoji you're going to use. So in the order I go is who I am, what I do, why I do it. So if there's a powerful why, if there's a client, if there's a testimonial, and then how do I do it? And this could be where you tell people I do it in one-to-one group. You can have as many things as you want here. And I also like to put in an offer. So I remember I said to you that like links don't work, but people take screenshots. And notice I have a bit.ly here because again, you could just tell people the link is in my Clubhouse bio, or you can click on or use this bit.ly to buy it. This particular offer, I sold 3 of them at $37 each during a 60-minute Clubhouse that I wasn't even going to do. I think I scheduled it an hour before I went on. So people do buy. So just it's super easy and quick to do that. And then I have my Facebook group linked in here. So I have multiple calls to action for them in here for ways to people to connect. Arrows pointing down. This is the group that I'm in, the Schmilly. So if you have a hashtag that you want to use, hashtags are searchable on Clubhouse. So if you have your own hashtag, or if you wanted to create a hashtag like in a group to let people know. And then this like last section is where people get a little bit personal. I will tell you this, I need to add a little bit more personal stuff, but I created mine right around when I was doing some fundraising for my sister's family. And so I added this to here. It's also keyword searchable. I've seen people put their Cash Apps in here, their Venmos in here, their Voxers in here, like put whatever, however you want people to communicate with you in here. But then just don't forget at the end of this to tell people what you want them to do on your Instagram. Tell them to follow you. Tell them to send you a DM. Call to actions matter everywhere. They matter on our Instagram. Jamie has like a really great IGTV about call to actions. Like call to actions matter everywhere, and they matter in Clubhouse as well. Somebody said to me, I hate Instagram and I hate Twitter. I don't want to have it. And I was like, well, then why are you on Clubhouse? Because there's no other way to connect with people. So if these are not your preferred ways of communicating, use your Instagram link to drop the way you want people to communicate. So I hear all the time when I was doing this for Luminary, I want people to follow me on LinkedIn. So if you want people to follow you on LinkedIn, put your LinkedIn link in your Instagram bio and say, follow me on LinkedIn, right? Again, we can work around the Clubhouse rules to direct people. You get to have that. And then the very last thing is, you can't see the nominated, but whoever nominates you will stay on your profile forever. So when people were giving away, like, so I tell this because I was in a room, the very first room I went in, and this woman said, so I was nominated by an adult film star. and I'm wondering if I can take her off of my profile. And you cannot. So if you have strong emotions about certain topics, like I had somebody ask me for an app and I had to say like my politics better. I love it. Regina, I knew you would like it would be fine for some people, like, but you know, I just like to say that to people, if you feel strongly about a particular topic, you might not want to be nominated or nominate somebody, but yeah. So that's a key thing to note. Also, yeah, the business for sure. So that's one last thing to note. Let me go back. Okay, so last couple of things here is I definitely the bio swapping I think is clear. If you wanted to do this, just a couple of things is to have 2 bios, everything is searchable. I kind of went over all of this with you. People do screenshot, so don't be afraid to like put extra things inside of your bio. People screenshot them all the time. And then get in the DMs. I've said this a few times before. Have at least one way for people to talk to you and to get onto your email list. We've talked about LinkedIn. Definitely Voxer is a big thing on Clubhouse bios. People have it all the time. But I will say this, I think LinkedIn is, my gut is saying that LinkedIn is going to be connected soon. I think once they have Android up, then they're going to start to add other features. Yeah, exactly. They're just gonna, and I heard that Facebook, okay, so I heard this rumor that Facebook, if you were putting Clubhouse in your Facebook post, that they were lowering you. I just use CH or like don't write out the word Clubhouse, but we don't really know what's happening. It's, I also find it ironic that the only option is Instagram, but yet Instagram and Facebook like don't like each other, and I don't like Clubhouse. I'm like, that you're getting so many more people on Instagram because of Clubhouse. So I don't have the answers to that, but definitely look at that, and definitely check your other boxes on Instagram. So if you have a creator's account or any other account, it might end up in your other box. I have a creator's account, so I have the general, my first one, and then my other one. So after I'm in a Clubhouse room, I'll notice that I have a lot more messages in my, like, the people that I don't know. And then we've talked about having the DM, the panel running. Let me see if I'm in my last slide, because I was like, I want to make sure that I have time for questions. So I do, moderating is really important, and I love to moderate. So if you are interested in moderating, I recommend 3 to 4. Here's the benefit. You want to think of who you're moderating with, because for example, if I moderate with you, all 1,300 or all 1,400 of my Clubhouse followers get an invitation, get a notice that I've created a room. So for example, when I mentioned that Perez Hilton was on a panel about coaches that he had no business being on, well, his only purpose to be there was to bring in all of his like 20,000 followers, so they had a huge room, right? Because I noticed about 15 minutes later, he wasn't on the panel anymore. So he had probably done his like 15 minutes talk and say what he had to say, and then he was ready to leave. So if you're thinking about moderating, you might want to think about who do you want to bring in. There's benefits to moderating with all the same people. So I'm sorry I keep on picking on you, Jamie, but Jamie and I both, I know Jamie does social media, I do social media. We could moderate together. The benefit of moderating with someone who does the same thing as you is it's going to keep your Clubhouse really narrow. And I don't think that, it's not like we're competing for clients. You're actually offering more support. And I was on a panel once with Gwen Lane, and it was really important because somebody said to me, like, does my Clubhouse or does my Instagram profile need to look pretty? And I was like, no, everybody loves it when it's like fun and, you know, it's all different. And then Gwen was like, except that this particular person wanted to be an influencer for a baby company. And she said, in your particular instance, as an influencer, you may want to think about what's on your grid because a certain brand might be looking for a certain aesthetic. So it was really powerful to have somebody there who might know that little niche that I don't know. So definitely there's power to being with like-minded. There's also something nice to being on a panel with people who are adjacent to you. The only difference is I was on a panel, there was a LinkedIn specialist, me as an Instagram, and somebody as a TED Talk specialist. And the minute we said Instagram, everybody had tons of questions about Instagram. So just think about like how you can make sure that all of your moderators get a chance to speak. So that's 2 thoughts there, but I definitely encourage you to have a couple of people on the panel. maybe even somebody who's just there to like run the speaking, to let people up on stage and to reset the room. If that's not your strength, like I love to reset rooms. So I'm happy to be like your reset room person because it's my favorite thing to do. I don't know, it's just fun. And again, create connections. Like that's the other thing. When you go into rooms, if you see somebody, you hear somebody who sounds like you would love to collaborate with them, send them a message, be like, hey, I heard you in Clubhouse. I'd love to, see if you're interested in moderating a room together. Sometimes the best people to moderate with are people that you don't really even know that well. Just make sure you have that back channel to talk with. I ended up being on Miley's room. She does a room every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I ended up being on her room and I didn't know her. And it also really helped me get in front of new clients. If this was helpful at all, feel free to grab, I need to update this. It's $77 now for an Instagram and Clubhouse audit, but $10 off if you use the code 10 off. So Jamie, great question. Yeah, ask me all the questions now. How much time do I dedicate weekly to Clubhouse? I like to listen about 15 minutes a day. And I like to do a room like once a week. I find that I just put in one earpiece and kind of like walk around my house. It has saved me time on social media. Like I don't have to be on Instagram as often, like trying to do the $1.80 method of messaging new people to find new followers. I can go to Clubhouse, go to rooms that I think are interesting to me and find and connect more with people. So for me, you're so welcome, Harley. For me, it's been really helpful in like managing my time. I hope that's helpful, Jamie. Yeah. Allison.
Hi, so helpful. And I definitely want to like dive in and get it all going. But my question is, so in terms of the like teaching aspect, if I'm talking about like, here are some tips to help you stop people pleasing kind of thing, and then we're having conversation around people pleasing and everything. In the course of like resetting the room, should I ever return to my lesson and like give my teaching again? Or like if I see like 20 new people in the room who haven't heard my tips, or should I like just keep going with the conversation naturally?
I think it's really up to you what
Okay.
you want to do. I like to do both ways. It depends on how much time I have left. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, like, for those of you who are just joining, I shared earlier about how to use hashtags to help you gain more followers. We were just talking about the fact that you don't want to use the million hashtags, you want to use the smaller ones. If you have questions about that, go ahead and raise your hand, but we're going to move on to another topic. So I might do a quick recap of that. And typically what I find is that when I'm in a room, somebody will ask a question that was answered earlier and I'll just like restate it, because the one thing about Clubhouse is people are coming in and out pretty quickly. So I also think it's important to keep your room then kind of focused on like one topic. That doesn't mean that I don't answer people's questions. Like that's why my friend Melissa and I did a room on Facebook groups, because people were asking us about Facebook groups. And then people were coming in and we still ended up talking about Instagram because they knew that she was an Instagram expert as well. But I think it's easier to do like a smaller one. To your point, one room that I think is really hard to do are networking rooms. Because if I come into a networking room and I go first and then 20 more people come in, like it's hard to get back to that. You're not going to have everybody like reintroduce themselves. So networking rooms have been a little bit awkward for me. I don't know if that makes sense to everyone, but like it would be weird. So I think a better way if you wanted to do a networking room would be like, we're going to have an open discussion for the first 30 minutes and then we'll do a networking connection at like, if the room started at 2 o'clock, say network connections begin at 2:30. So at that point, you're kind of like you're trying to get everybody into the room. Kind of like what Kelly does here. Like she lets us all kind of get in and then there's time to do introductions. Allison, was that helpful? Cool. Kelly, I know we have a few minutes left. I'll take any questions. I dropped my Instagram if anybody wants to do this. I'm just Monica Monfrey as well on Clubhouse. I made it super simple to find me, but definitely ask questions away. How to name Clubhouse events. I think being really specific and like the name of it, so it's searchable, like still SEO, and then in your description being a little bit more clear. I like to say that like this is a 60-minute room in the description. I think naming it, you have a certain amount of characters. I believe it's 100. I think it's good to be like cheesy with the titles, but you don't want to be so cheesy that people like don't know what you're talking about. At the end of the day, the more people who are going to be in the hallway, I should say this, in the hallway, you can absolutely get people who come to your events, but you do want to have very clear names if you're just going to be in the hallway. I think one way to grow something is to just commit to going on Clubhouse. Back to Jamie's point. Oh, the hallway is when you're doing a room that's not in a Clubhouse, it's just kind of like the random, like your feed almost, but they call it your hallway. It's just your feed. To go back to your point earlier, Jamie, how often, I think it's really important as you're growing to show up consistently on Clubhouse, just like how we talk about showing up consistently. So maybe saying, I'm going to go on Clubhouse every Tuesday at 4 p.m. and I'm going to do a 60-minute or 30-minute conversation about this, and then tell your audience that come join me Tuesdays at 4 p.m. for the month of March, where I'll be giving information about whatever your topic is. Or like Regina, you do breath work. Maybe it's, I'm going to do breath work every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 10 minutes. And then people just know that that's where you're going to go. Almost like how we were all using Instagram Lives when the pandemic first started, kind of that like same way in Clubhouse. But again, the consistency is how people will start to like show up more to your events. I see somebody who does it like every morning they wake up for a 5-minute like motivation, and maybe you only have 10 people who come, but if those 10 people come every single day, you're like starting to create an audience.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I told you about this, but I did for the last event that we had for Morning Magic Collective, a spirituality event. Me and the co-host did a room and nobody came, and we waited for like 15 minutes. There was nobody there. So now I'm like, this is not reinforcing at all. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to like schedule it and whatever, and no one's going to come. So what's my next step now if you could give me like maybe one thing, like, okay, do this. Maybe it's like share it a certain way, or what would you say is the best way to get people in there when you're just starting?
I think it would be two things. I think it's to invite someone that has a strong stability and be like, hey, will you be on the panel? Even if they or just be a guest so that they can ping people in. And then definitely using Instagram and Facebook to like reshare it and to let people know like, hey, I'm doing this, DM me for the link. And it's just like anything else to publicize it. And then if it's in the hallway, you can have people invite people to ping people. And so one thing I hear people say all the time is like, if you want to invite like 1 or 2 people, and that would help us get more people into the room. Okay. I try to like go into rooms if people ping me in, but it's hard. You can also if you don't want people to bother you, you can turn your doorbell off so that you won't get pinged into rooms. But I think that's like a really great thing, is to think about who you're moderating with, and then how you can utilize your current social media channels to get people to come.
Okay.
I go back to like, I'm very torn. I think when I see a room that has 10 moderators, I feel like it's overwhelming that there's so many people on stage. But part of the reason why they do have 10 moderators is so that each of those moderators' followers are invited to the room. So that's like, now that you know that, now you'll be like, oh, that's why they have that many moderators. The room gets capped at 5,000 though. Not that I'm never there, but like Elon Musk, like he had to have an overflow room, right? He like shut down the app. So that would be my thing, Kelly, is like, who else could you like collaborate with to bring it, to let in, or to connect and let us know to come and join?
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Go ahead, Allison.
I feel so formal. I'm part of this mastermind, and like I'm very used to raising my hand. But I have a question, because like one of my things is, and we may all relate to, like, I've gone to like IG lives before, and then I've like been the only person there, and then I've been like awkward about leaving and like not wanting to be there. And so like when I look at this, like, does it like, okay, so I get that there's just one moderator, but like what do these mean? Like, is that telling me like there's 700 people in the room? And like,
yes,
what does the little like 16 like thought bubble mean?
So if we look at lunch break pull up, for example, or that's not one. So if it says that the bubble one is how many people are on stage talking. So the first one is how many people are in the room, and then the thought bubble is how many people are on stage talking. And then here's one thing I'll do. So if I would head into Kelly's room, and let's say there's only 2 people talking, and I know Kelly, and I feel like it'll be bad if I leave, I'll actually like raise my hand. If I'm the only person in the audience, I'll like raise my hand and be like, hey everyone, I just saw this. I wanted to come in and show support, but I actually have to run to something else. I'm super sorry. Or my friend Jennifer, she popped into my room the other day and was like, I accidentally popped in your room. I'm so sorry that I had to leave. Like, you can just send somebody a message if you know them, but that's what the bubbles mean. Yeah. So, oh, and Jamie left, Kelly, but Jamie's awesome. You guys, she needs to be in the community. She's a client. So she does retreats, but I hope I've answered everyone's questions. If anyone does want to do an audit, I love helping people write their bios, both for Clubhouse and for Instagram. The audit is $77, but you can use the code 10 off, and then you get a 30-minute call with me. So I basically do a write-up of both of your Instagram and your Clubhouse. I do a quick Loom video, and then we hop on a call just so you can like think about what you're doing. A lot of people also do it right before they host their first room. So we talk about like how you can make your room light up and you feel comfortable. We go into a room. If you want to do that, we'll go into a room on Clubhouse and we'll pretend like we're in the real room so you can practice. Thank you so much, Kelly. This was so much fun.
This was great, jam-packed with juicy information. Damn, we really like hit it all. I feel like now it's a matter of putting it into practice, and I feel like there's going to be 900 more questions once we're actually all doing it, and then we'll all reach out to you for our call.
Yeah, I need to put up I don't have the order. Let me get the.
Go ahead and put if you have a link to put it in the chat, Monica, but I'm going to send everyone the replay and I'll put it in there too, and let them know about it. But this was so helpful. And I was feeling really overwhelmed in my Clubhouse, like I said, but now I'm feeling like, okay, let's do it. I'm ready. So thank you. This was great. And we love an actionable workshop and training where we can just go make moves. So thank you, Monica. This was really amazing. And I appreciate you so much. And hopefully I'll see all of you guys on Clubhouse when
I would love.
I'll include my Clubhouse link, and then we can all follow each other and collaborate some more.
Cool.
Definitely. I would love to collaborate with everyone. And absolutely, like, I just dropped it for everyone. And so, yeah, I would love to chat more with everyone.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Monica, and everyone have an amazing day, and I will see you soon. Bye.